What's up, everyone? Welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of the Patel Kumar Show. I'm your host, Shivam Patel, coming to you live from San Antonio, Texas. And my co-host, Mr. Kumar, coming to you live from Mumbai, India. And man, what a jam-packed show we have for you today. Lots of NBA news. Even we're going to get to some Indian news also. We're going to be talking about the buyout market, talking about the NBA All-Star recap. You're going to hear me and Mr. Kumar's mid-season awards. And then we have an Indian topic for the Indian Third section. Is Indian ballers studying abroad good or bad? But what's up, Mr. Kumar?
What's up, Mr. Patel? Thank you very much for that introduction and welcome everyone to the 7th episode of the Patel and Kumar NBA Talk Show Season 2. What a fantastic week we are having. Of course, the All-Star game, and then of course a lot of news coming from the trade market, the buyout market, and of course as we have a hot topic in terms of whether Indian ballers should be going to the US or abroad to study and play basketball. But before that, I mean, how's the weather in San Antonio, Mr. Patel?
Oh, it's so nice. It's getting to spring weather, Mr. Kumar. We already got like the winter storm out of the way. It's beautiful outside, 70s. A lot more people are outside enjoying some nice nature. It's been really nice here, and we're enjoying the weather. How's the weather in Mumbai, Mr. Kumar?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a little bit pleasant, but I think it's going to get hotter and hotter. I think we are almost coming to the end of whatever... I'm not looking forward to it because I really like the nice, pleasant weather right now. I can enjoy my terrace at my home and, of course, doing the show right from there. So, you know, it's not a good feeling that summer is coming in India.
Right, it can get pretty hot and pretty humid, you know, in Mumbai. I know that for sure. But yeah, Mr. Kumar got a nice view. So enjoy it while it lasts, Mr. Kumar, before the weather gets too hot. And thank you again for the audience comment. And he says, hello, Vinod, sir. So Vinod has his own little fan club that watches the show in India. What can I say? He's a very popular man. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching, for tuning in. And before we get started, we have a question that we want to ask the audience. Is Indian ballers studying abroad good or bad? So we're going to be talking about this in the Indian Third segment. So be sure to stay tuned. But please put your your comments in the chat section below and put your thoughts about this topic. Is Indian ballers studying abroad good or bad? And they will appear live on the show. So definitely let the audience start thinking about that, Mr. Kumar. And it's a very interesting topic. But what are we going to be talking about first, Mr. Kumar?
I think it's but natural that we start with the recap of the All-Star festivities. I think it was great that we could have the All-Star game at all. I mean, it was contemplated at the beginning of the season that there would be just a 1-week break and there won't be any All-Star weekend. But at the end of the day, I think you got to hand it out to the pulling off a great Sunday, at least. I mean, it was not the whole weekend, but at least we got to see the skills challenge, the 3-point competition, and of course the slam dunk competition was okay. But a great Sunday after all for the NBA.
It was, and NBA was on the spotlight. It was a wonderful Sunday. It all was in one day. The good news is there was no positive tests coming out of All-Star weekend because that was a concern with all the star players being in one place. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons did not test positive for the coronavirus. They were in contact with somebody that came in positive, so they're good. Hopefully, they will be back. And yes, Team LeBron ended up pulling out the win. It was not as much of an interesting game. It was still one-sided, but Team LeBron, they put on a show, Mr. Kumar. They had a wonderful team around them. LeBron was an excellent GM. Maybe that's a future, career path for him after he, retires from the NBA. But it was just really entertaining. You saw Steph Curry get a lob, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, all the point guards. I think you saw Damian Lillard and Steph Curry exchanging half-court three-pointers, Mr. Kumar. And man, get your popcorn ready. It was a very, very interesting game.
Absolutely. I think it was all Dame Lillard and Steph Curry show. I know Giannis, of course, went Thank you, Swanshu Malik, and
Thank you.
good to read you as well. We cannot see you, but thank you for putting in those comments. But as I was saying, I think it was the Steph Curry and Dame Lillard show. I think both, just heaving half court shots, and but at the end of the day, Giannis wins, the MVP of the All Star game for going 16 of 16. And 3 of 3 from the 3-point line. But of course, he called glass in each one of those 3 points, I
Well,
think.
I guess the bank was open on Sundays, Mr. Kumar, because he banked 2 of them in. They were lucky shots. Even though Giannis did go 16 for 16, I still thought either Damian Lillard or Steph Curry deserved the MVP because of their performance overall. They were just making threes from everywhere. They couldn't miss. Giannis's buckets were really easy. Like, nobody was really playing defense in this All-Star game, Mr. Kumar. So he had like a straight line to the basket. But I thought, this talent was more skewed on Team LeBron than it was on Team Durant. Because, of course, on Team Durant, their 2 best players, Joel Embiid and Kevin Durant, couldn't play. So, LeBron had all the talent. But it was still entertaining. We saw some great dunks. We saw a lot of great passes, some 3-pointers. You can't complain. It was like a typical All-Star game, Mr. Kumar. And it definitely entertained me. It was a great showcase by the NBA.
Absolutely. But, at the end of the day, it was more like a weekend that the players really wanted, to get some rest. We'll be discussing about the dunk contest pretty soon once we finish the recap of the All-Star game. I think overall, as LeBron didn't even play in the second half. He played only like 12 or 13 minutes. And of course, he enjoyed playing with Steph Curry. And all of a sudden, people start contemplating in terms of whether Steph Curry is going to join LeBron because he hasn't signed the extension yet and stuff like that. But, people just want to get some news out of it, right? But, at the end of the day, it was a great game. I think, of course, Team LeBron was totally stacked up. And, of course, as you mentioned, Kevin Durant, he's not playing because of the injury. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons get pulled out in the last minute, and Michael Conley comes in.
Very happy for
for them. So So very good evening, Ashok, to you as well. Thank you for joining in. And in all, it was a great show. Once again, I think it was all over by the third quarter because Team LeBron already had a 20-point lead, and you add 24 points in the fourth quarter. So in all, I think it's good for the for the Thurgood Marshall fund because they won, I think, $1.5 million because Team LeBron won the the All-Star game.
Right. And another great thing about the All-Star game that, yes, like Mr. Kumar said, it went to charity. It supported the, HBCUs. There's a lot of commercials about them just raising awareness. And I think that's what kind of sold the players on that. It was for a good cause. And, it was just a quick trip. I think the players, didn't mind that. They went basically to Atlanta on Saturday evening. They stayed in the hotel till the All-Star game, then left right after the game. So it was just a little quick trip, a chance for everybody to kind of say hi, get together a little bit, NBA to showcase its top stars for charity. It was a good cause, Mr. Kumar. And overall, you can't complain. We saw all the stars. A lot of them played a lot of even minutes. I was more interested in watching the first-time All-Stars, the Zach LaVines, the Julius Randles, the Mike Conleys. I think the Zion Williamsons. Zion was a little nervous at the beginning. He missed 4 dunks there, but then he kind of got it back as the game progressed. But I think it was overall just a great show, and I think everybody enjoyed themselves. They were safe. They were healthy. And now we're getting ready to start the second half of the season. So I think it was a great event by the NBA.
Absolutely. And of course, I think the season started today with 2 games. The Washington Wizards playing the Grizzlies and the Spurs playing, the
Mavericks.
The Mavericks. So I think the great start to the season. Once again, the second half of the season, we will be discussing about the mid-season awards shortly. But
Yes, stay
getting back
tuned.
to the All-Star festivities. I think, getting back to the All-Star festivities. Let's talk a little bit about the skills contest, the three-point contest, and the dunk contest as well.
All right, so let's first attack the skills contest. So because that was the first, event of All-Star Saturday night. This event surprisingly has been dominated by the big man, Mr. Kumar. It was Vucevic and Domantas Sabonis in the finals. And it just really shows you how much the game is changing, Mr. Kumar, because big men nowadays, you have to have a good handle. You have to be able to shoot. And Sabonis was flying through all those different content, through all the different obstacles, and he was very impressive. He made his threes most of the time on the first shot. But yes, it continues to be dominated by the big man, and Sabonis is another great. I'm glad he was able to take place in this All-Star weekend, be part of the NBA All-Star team. But it just I was surprised though, Mr. Kumar. I know usually bigs have been dominating, but I expected a better performance from like a Chris Paul or Luka Doncic.
I think everybody faltered. I mean, those who faltered, they bring, most of them had 2 attempts. I think Sabonis used to pass through that, almost in his first attempt. And of course, the last shot, which is the 3-point shot, is which basically, if you get it right in the first attempt, you're pretty much almost a winner, because it's very hard to go without a rhythm and stuff like that. So again, as you said, I think the final was Vucevic and Sabonis and Chris Paul, Luka Doncic, Michael Conley. Of course, they were just cakewalking, as Shazam mentioned.
Exactly. They were just going through the motions. The guards, I've noticed, they're like too cool for school. They don't really try. They don't want to break a sweat. They're like, okay, we're just doing this. But yeah, they were just mood walking. And Kenny Smith was very disappointed on the broadcast. He's like, come on, a guard has to win this. And Shaq, of course, with the big man, was pumped. It was very interesting, but I'm happy for Sabonis. He's getting his name recognition out there, because he's a big time player, but not as many people know of him because, he plays for a small market in the Indiana Pacers. So congratulations to Domantas Sabonis for winning the skills contest. Let's talk about the 3-point contest, Mr. Kumar. Oh my God, that was such a great contest. Very intriguing. Steph Curry ended up coming out. Go ahead.
Before you mention about the 3-point contest, I did call out that Sabonis is going to win the skills contest in the last.
Oh, there you
episode.
go. There you go. And exactly. Okay, you did, Mr. Kumar. I have to give you that. I said Luka Doncic, but I got the 3-point contest right. I said Steph Curry was going to win it, so I was able to get, at least get that one right. And so Steph Curry ended up beating, Mike Conley, and I believe the third contestant was Zach LaVine, I believe, in the finals. Those 3 guys were in the finals. And you knew Steph Curry was going to win because he just had this eye. He had this look on his face like, okay, this is my championship. I'm the best shooter here. And he kind of had that, body language and swag like, okay, he pulled a Larry Bird. Which one of you guys is going to come in second place, Mr. Kumar? So you can just see his confidence was really out there that he was going to win this contest.
Yeah, he was like a shooting machine. I don't think, especially with the money ball rack, in every round, he was right on the money. So, it felt like there was absolutely no competition in the 3-point contest. Of course, you expected probably, Jaylen Brown, the others to probably, at least give a big fight. But at the end of the day, Steph Curry is Steph Curry. And you don't call him a shooting machine for no reason.
Exactly. And he is one of the best shooters of all time, basically cemented his place. I would love to see, Mike Conley took Devin Booker's place. I would have loved to see Steph Curry and Devin Booker in the finals go head to head. I still thought, I still think Steph Curry would have won, but at least it would have been intriguing because Devin Booker, he's like a microwave. He can instantly get hot and he can really heat up, because Steph Curry basically proved that, yes, I am still the best shooter. I'm still one of the best players in the NBA. So major congratulations to Steph Curry for winning the 3-point shooter. And he got his revenge, Mr. Kumar, because if you remember a couple years ago in Charlotte, his hometown, Joe Harris beat Steph Curry. So he kind of got his revenge and was able to win the 3-point contest.
Absolutely. And moving on to the slam dunk competition.
Yes.
I think it was, well, I don't think it was as exciting as when you had Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine in the previous years. So I think it was a little bit of a damn squib, if you say, to me. I don't think, the dunks were really creative enough. I thought Anthony Simmons' first dunk was far more impressive than any other dunks that were done in the entire competition.
Right, Anthony Simmons, he's a small guy. He's only like 6'2", 6'3", but like he has some serious hops, Mr. Kumar. And he only has 2 dunks with the Portland Trailblazers. He comes off the bench, but yeah, he had some serious dunks. I did like his first dunk was nice. His second dunk, or in the finals, that ultimately won him the contest. He tried to kiss the rim, but he got really close, but luckily he didn't. Otherwise, all his teeth would have fallen out. But I think he put on a great show. Obi Toppin, I expected a little bit more from him. I thought he was going to be a little bit more creative. Cassius Stanley, who people don't really know about too much. He had a nice between the legs windmill kind of dunk, but we've already seen Zach LaVine do that dunk, and he made it look so easy, Mr. Kumar. So I think that it was, it was kind of tough for him to win. And yes, kind of saying every dunk contest, someone gets robbed. Yeah, I thought, Cassius Stanley got the short end of the stick a little bit on his first dunk. He only got like a low 40s when I thought he should have at least got a couple 9s, maybe even some 10s, Mr. Kumar. But Anthony Simmons was deserving. I liked his dunk where there was a little hoop at the top of the basket. He reached down, grabbed it, and then he dunked on the actual basket. That was nice, and then he almost kissed the rim. So I think he had to be the most creative out of all the dunkers.
Yes and no. Of course, I think it would have made much more exciting if he had actually kissed the rim, in that final dunk. But I thought Obi Toppin's dunk about Julius Randle and his dad was a little bit better in terms of the score. He almost got there, but I think the whole point was kissing the rim. It's not flying kiss the rim. I could fly kiss from down below, and I could still win the dunk contest. Is that what it is?
I don't know exactly. He got close, Mr. Kumar. I guess that was the best dunk out of all of them. Yeah, it was not very much creativity, but I guess he got close. And the Obi Toppin one, I thought it was a little bit of an overrated dunk because he kind of used Julius Randle as a springboard. He kind of had his hand on his shoulders and he kind of used them to jump up. He cleared his dad, but I thought he used Julius Randle a little bit as a springboard instead of completely clearing him.
Yeah, but still, you got to go about a 6'7", 6'8" player, and I know he kept probably one hand to balance himself or something. But Simmons' dunk at the end was, I don't know if you remember this dunk. I don't know who did it, but somebody blew a candle off
Gerald Green
at the top of the rim. Yeah. So yeah. It was kind of similar, but at the end of the day, the slow motions do the trick. That's what gets you. I think that's why the judges probably leaned more towards Simmons rather than Obi Toppin.
And I've noticed the dunk contest really favors the smaller guys more. I know, Zach LaVine won, but Anthony Simmons, again, like I said, he's 6'2". You didn't think he would have the hops. But yeah, I think, he did do really well. He was the most creative out of them. Yeah, if he would have pulled it off kissing the rim, he would have got straight 10s and it would have been over. But, he almost did. But I guess the judges were rewarding the effort. And back to that Gerald Green dunk, that was one of the most underrated dunks in dunk contest history, Mr. Kumar. He had the cupcake right on the rim, and he literally was up on top of the rim, blew the cupcake and dunked it. That was one of the most underrated classic dunks in history.
Absolutely. But congratulations to Anthony Simmons from the Trailblazers for winning the dunk contest. And of course, I think also $300,000 for a charity of his choice. So let's move on to the big news coming out from the Eastern Conference, which is not the Leaston Conference anymore.
It might be the better conference. I don't know.
Yeah, it is the better conference because nobody wants to play against LeBron. That's
Oh,
why. I mean,
everything comes back to LeBron. Oh man, but no, as Mr. Kumar was saying, we're going to be talking about now the player movement buyout market. So Blake Griffin signs with the Brooklyn Nets, and he's coming off, being bought out by the Detroit Pistons, and he's officially cleared the waivers and is part of the Brooklyn Nets. And Mr. Kumar, what was your overall takeaways and thoughts after you heard this news that Blake Griffin is going to be teaming up with Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant?
oh well, I mean, for any player of his stature, who's been an all-star before, but of course he's not the player that he was. He's at the fag end of his career. So all these players are always looking to sign up with a team that has the potential to probably win a championship. And Blake Griffin, of course, thought that he has a better chance of winning a championship with the Brooklyn Nets. Of course, because they're like totally loaded. They needed help down as well. So I think it was a good choice for Blake Griffin for taking that chance. But I really don't know if it's a wise move, because at the end of the day, I don't think he is a player that he was a couple of years before.
I agree with you, Mr. Kumar. I like this move for the Nets, but I wasn't like crazy about it. The Nets fill the need. They need a big man, because DeAndre Jordan is practically the only big man. They play a lot of small ball. But Blake Griffin, he roared on the scene, with the dunk contest and making multiple All-Star games, but really underachieved, with the Clippers. But he was really, robbed with his athleticism, due to a lot of injuries, and kind of saying with that roster, Brooklyn Nets should play in the All-Star next year. Yeah, they had a pretty star-studded All-Star roster, for sure. And, all three of them deserve to make it. And I think that they're going to continue to, to do well in the future All-Stars. But, Blake Griffin, he doesn't have the same athleticism that he did have, back with his days in the Clippers. But he's developed himself as a really interesting, shooting big. He does a lot of pick and pop. He can shoot the three compared to when he came in the NBA. He really couldn't. So I expect the Nets to use him in a lot of pick and pop. I don't think he's going to be inside as much, because I think he struggles to finish against length. But he's just going to be there as an extra body, to get rebounds, to put in the rotation. He's a good facilitator, good passer. But I think he's going to have a limited role with the Nets. He's going to be more of an energy player, Mr. Kumar, coming off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has had 0 dunks this year.
Yeah.
He's the only player who's, more the NBA and who shot like, 100 field goals, who has 0 dunks. So it goes to show that, he's going further away from the rim, in the last few years. When he came into the LA Clippers, he was a ferocious player inside the D. He could be flying. He flew over the car for a dunk contest, and then slowly he began to move away, get those, shot from just away from the D, and now he's more of a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it remains to be seen how Steve Nash uses him, whether how many minutes is he going to play. And the other, big news coming out is that Kevin Durant is out indefinitely because they're going to do another test on his hamstring. So they don't know when he's going to come back. He was expected to come back after the All-Star break, but now that's not the case. So, they've already had challenges in terms of all the 3 players, that is Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant playing together. They've had only 6 or 7 games so far.
Yeah.
And with Blake Griffin coming in, that's another piece that they have to maneuver. And, so I think it's going to be a huge jigsaw puzzle in the second half of the season for the Brooklyn Nets. They look absolutely wonderful on paper.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's going to be a tough situation for Coach Steve Nash when all 4 of them are together playing, and how many minutes that Blake Griffin gets, and whether he understands the role that he's going to play, because Blake, I mean, he's got to understand that he's not the same player that he was in LA Clippers or even in Detroit. He was playing 31 minutes, in Detroit, but I think his minutes are going to drop down to like maybe 15, 17 minutes, when they use that rotation as a small ball. And I think Bruce Brown in that lineup with Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant is much better suited to close the games than with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan.
I agree. I think they are going to play. Their closing lineup is now a small lineup. They played, Jeff Green. They played kind of the three guys, the three big guys, and then the three main guys, and then Bruce Brown. I 100% agree with you, Mr. Kumar. Blake Griffin is going to be more of an energy player. He's going to get a lot of dunks, I think, more because in the pick and roll with either Kyrie or James Harden, they're going to put more emphasis on those two guys, Kyrie or James, and then Blake Griffin can just roll to the basket and get easy dunks, or if the defense collapses on him, he can kick it out. But yeah, he's just going to have to come in, play really hard. He's going to have to get rebounds. He's going to have to make some good passes and he's going to have to be a good leader because he's a veteran. But I think he understands that his athleticism is diminishing, that he's more of a veteran kind of guy. He's going to mentor the young guys. And I think he understands that. I think he wants the opportunity to win a championship. And yeah, Roger is saying, do you think Blake will come off the bench? Yes, he will come off the bench. And we had another question earlier that says, does Blake Griffin make the Nets really hard to beat? It doesn't move the needle as much to me. I think the Nets are practically the same than they were before. If they get Andre Drummond, then yes, it moves the needle. Yes, they still need another big, either Andre Drummond or JaVale McGee. And yes, the Nets will be significant players, in not only in the Eastern Conference, but to win the championship. And, what does he need to do to get to the starting lineup? I don't think he can't do anything. I think, Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan are just better than him. I think, he's just going to have to accept his role, as Mr. Kumar said perfectly, as, coming off the bench.
He needs to get 10 years younger. He needs to get 10 years younger.
He needs to drink the fountain of youth. He needs to drink from the fountain of youth, no, for sure. But Mr. Kumar, let's also talk about, Andre Drummond, who is also in the buyout market. He's right now currently sitting out, with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he's waiting, for a new home. And there's been discussions maybe the Sixers are interested, the Heat, the Lakers, or the Nets. So, taking your Lakers hat off, Mr. Kumar, what do you think is the best fit for Andre Drummond?
Well, once again, I think it's going to be the same situation as Blake Griffin. Of course, Cleveland are holding out, not waiving him because they still think probably they could work out some kind of a trade package for him, but he's owed somewhere around, $32 million. And I don't know if a lot of teams really have something that they can get for a player like Andre Drummond. But the good thing is he's only 28 years old. He averages about 18 points and 13 rebounds. So he still can make a big difference for any team that he goes to. And I got to wear my Lakers hat. And I got to say that probably Lakers would be the best destination for him.
Oh, Mr. Kumar, no, come on. I was expecting you to be objective. No, not really. Mr. Kumar bleeds the purple and gold, but
No, I mean, it's not about bleeding. It's not about bleeding. I think, there are only two teams that are really looked at from the outside as probable, championship contenders. The one, and you have the Brooklyn Nets right now, and the other end is, the Lakers. Of course, there's the Philadelphia 76ers. There's the Los Angeles Clippers. They're also like right up there, but I don't think the Clippers really have, a roster spot available. They will have to waive somebody else from their roster. I think Lakers have one roster spot open because they've signed Damon Jones to a 10-day contract. The second 10-day contract. And they need a big man, and they're gonna be active in that market. I mean, either they're gonna get. The only way Andre Drummond can go to the Lakers if there is a waiver from Cleveland Cavaliers. There is absolutely no trade package that the Lakers can offer. to Cleveland. The other active people centers in the market are going to be Hassan Whiteside, or
Ravel.
or JaVale McGee, who's also with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, they need a big man till they can probably wait for Anthony Davis to get fit and come back into the lineup. And they need somebody to help LeBron James keep the momentum with the Lakers, because defensively, they're probably one of the best rated teams in the NBA. And if they need to continue that momentum as a defensive team, probably they need to get active in that big man market.
Right, and Andre Drummond, no, I think you need to come to the Nets, Andre Drummond. The Nets also need a big man. If you want to win a championship, Andre Drummond, come to the Brooklyn Nets, because everybody is coming to the Brooklyn Nets because they are at the center of the universe, Mr. Kumar. They also need a big man, and Andre Drummond will start immediately if he comes to the Brooklyn Nets. He will start over DeAndre Jordan because he's just a better player than DeAndre Jordan. So come start, get impactful minutes, Andre Drummond. Continue to get your double-double, because James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, they're really unselfish players. You see how much James Harden is facilitating. You're going to be in a great team, get to play with it for a championship, and come have some fun in Brooklyn because they're the new it team. So I'm hoping Andre Drummond comes to the Brooklyn Nets, Mr. Kumar, because they really need him and they could really use him. And just imagine that pick and roll with, the big three and then Andre Drummond. What are you going to do, Mr. Kumar? What are you going to do in the defense? You can't. If you stop the big three, Andre Drummond's going to get an easy bucket. If you stop Andre Drummond, then the big three is going to get easy points. So it's a win-win situation.
At the end of the day, this is for the Brooklyn Nets and me rooting for the. So I think Andre Drummond is sitting somewhere and thinking, you know what? What's going to be? Is it going to be Brooklyn Nets or is it going to be the Los Angeles Lakers?
Right, we'll see. He has some decisions, a big decision to make, Mr. Kumar, and he has a chance to move the needle.
No, but this big decision to make is for the Cleveland Cavaliers, whether they're going to waive him or they're going to wait for some kind of a trade package for him.
I think they're going to waive him. I think they're just going to. I think they should, and I think he's going to be moved. In the trade deadline. But there's also some other big men. JaVale McGee, Hassan Whiteside. So we'll see, Mr. Kumar. We'll see what's going to happen. But hopefully, DeAndre Jordan will be available in the trade deadline. And just quickly before we move on to our midseason awards, just wanted to mention LaMarcus Aldridge. Him and the Spurs decided to part ways mutually, and I think the Spurs are looking for some suitors for him. There's a lot of top contending teams, Mr. Kumar, that are interested in him. Let's see what the Spurs can get back. I think the end of the light for LaMarcus Aldridge was in the bubble last year when he didn't play and the young guys played really well, and the Spurs were going to a youth movement. And so I think that it's going to be a tough decision, but I think LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be on his way out of the Spurs sooner rather than later.
Knowing Popovich, I know that he's never going to trade Aldridge to some kind of a West contender because he's always been, very worried about that. He did the same thing with Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard when they got traded to the Toronto Raptors. So I think the most suitable options are probably the Miami Heat or somebody like that, or maybe the Trailblazers.
A reunion.
Win, and a reunion is on the cards. But once again, I think he's owed about $25 million in the next season. So it's going to be tough for any team to create a good trade package, especially the Clippers or the Lakers, because they really don't have traded all of them for the players that they have got in the previous seasons.
Right, and the Spurs, you need to upgrade at the big position. I think they could possibly trade with the Orlando Magic. Get a young piece, maybe a Mo Bamba, a Vucevic. But we'll see, Mr. Kumar. Hopefully the Spurs, get something to gain out of this trade, and LaMarcus Aldridge can go somewhere where he can have more of a role and more of an impact. But Mr. Kumar, let's move on to our mid-season awards prediction. So we're going to be talking about all the different awards at the end of the what we think is going to happen, with the mid-season awards. And we're going to start with the sixth man of the year, Mr. Kumar. So I want to hear from you first. Who is your midseason sixth man of the year?
As of now, I think Jordan Clarkson ranks at the top of my list. He has been phenomenal for the Jazz this season. It's been a revelation of sorts. When I saw him play with the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron, I mean, he was more like a second string player. I mean, he was not reliable, but he's been really good off the bench. He's averaging almost 18 points. He's almost shooting 39% from the three, and he's made a big impact in the Jazz. Being at the top of the table in the Western Conference.
100% agree, Mr. Kumar. 18 points in 26 minutes. He's second in the team in points behind Donovan Mitchell, shooting 55% effective field goal percentage. He just comes in and he has the ultimate green light. And when he gets hot, Mr. Kumar, he can set the building on fire because he could. I've seen him go crazy. He has a lot of, his teammates have a lot of confidence in him. He shoots mostly threes, but he can drive to the basket. And yes, Jordan Clarkson was such a great pickup for the Jazz, and I think he's totally balling out this year, and he is worthy of sixth man of the year.
Absolutely. And a small mention to, Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors, who's also probably is also contender for the most improved player. He's helped the Toronto Raptors in the last 8 or 9 games. Let's look at of course, 81% of our audience thinks it's Jordan Clarkson. So
they agree with us.
Looking, if we were the voters, I think Clarkson would get the award at the end of the season. So hopefully he's able to continue that momentum.
Right. And this is we're doing these midseason predictions that if the season ended today, this is who me and Mr. Kumar would cast our ballot for. Of course, we don't have a vote in this, but this is who we would choose, if the season ended today for all these different awards. And yes, it looks like the audience agrees that Jordan Clarkson should be, the sixth man of the year. So Mr. Kumar, now let's move on to defensive player of the year. So who is your pick for that award?
I think it's a no-brainer with the defensive player. I think it should be LeBron James. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think Rudy Gobert. I mean, Rudy Gobert has been phenomenal. 13 rebounds. I think, almost 3 blocks a game and almost 1 steal. But I think Ben Simmons is a close second.
Yes, Raj, I'd petition to get Patel and Kumar a vote for the NBA awards. Yes, we should have a vote definitely for the awards. We're pretty. We want a vote for sure. I think we definitely deserve one, and maybe in the future, Mr. Kumar, we'll see. But back to defensive player of the year, I think it's Joel Embiid, Mr. Kumar, and yes, Rudy Gobert is going to have better defensive stats.
What?
Come on, I test Mr. Kumar. He's 4th. The Sixers are 4th in total defense. Joel Embiid's the anchor for them. He's 4th in usage rate, so he has more responsibility on both ends of the floor. And I test. If you watch the Jazz and Sixers game before the All-Star break, Joel Embiid was dominant on defense. He was completely blowing up the pick and roll.
That's one game. That's one game.
But he's gonna continue that, Mr. Kumar. Rudy Gobert couldn't get anything on him. He couldn't guard him on the offensive end on the floor. And Joel Embiid was just deflecting passes, stealing the ball, disrupting lob passes. He just caused havoc. And Joel Embiid is going to continue to that as he continues to get more.
It's not a vote that you give off one game. You can expect. Utah Jazz is.
Best
they lost just 2 games. They won they had 19 wins in 20 games. Rudy Gobert was a big reason for that win. Of course, the offense as well with Jordan Clarkson and Donovan Mitchell. But you're going off by 1 game. Looking at the stats, he's going to sit out for another 6 or 7 games.
But the games he does play, he's more impactful than Rudy Gobert. He's asked to do more. He's fourth in usage rate. All Rudy Gobert does is just block shots and dunk. Joel Embiid has to carry the offense for the Sixers. And on the defensive end, he is their anchor. He has to block the shots, get the rebounds, effective. He affects more shots than blocking more shots. You see the defender has to contort their body, and it really affects their shot, Mr. Kumar. And Rudy Gobert, I don't think he's the defensive player of the year because he couldn't even stop Joel Embiid, Mr. Kumar. Joel Embiid threw a little elbow at Rudy Gobert and he went flying. He had no business stopping Joel Embiid and he couldn't. And I think based on the eye test, Joel Embiid has had some amazing defensive games, and he's going to continue that, Mr. Kumar. And he is the defensive anchor for the Sixers.
If I think Ben Simmons is the defensive anchor for also Shake Milton, and of course, it really helps Joel Embiid being there in that lineup. I mean, he's a 7-foot player. Of course, offensively, he is much more powerful for the 76ers than the previous seasons. But you can ignore the fact that, the Utah Jazz has been the team to beat in, and Philadelphia 76ers, mind you, I don't know if, once Blake Griffin comes into that Brooklyn Nets lineup, if they're going to, they're just probably half a game behind Philadelphia 76ers. And it's the least in conference, for God's sake. There are only three teams.
No.
There's only three teams in the East. It's the Brooklyn Nets, it's the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. The rest of them are below 500. They're all 500 or below 500. And, at the West, it's going to be a tough situation. If you got to give out the Defensive Player of the Year award, it has to be the LeBron James, because he's been far more effective for the Lakers defensively and offensively. And the Lakers are the number one ranked defensive team in the NBA right now.
But Mr. Kumar, the Sixers are rated higher on defense than the Jazz. Yes, the Lakers are number one, but the Sixers are fourth. Jazz are like sixth or something like that. So that has to count for something. And teams fear Joel Embiid on defense more than they fear Rudy Gobert. You see, he's big, he's athletic, he's more athletic than Rudy Gobert. He affects shot. Teams shy away from him on the defensive end of the floor. They do not attack the Sixers in the paint because they know Joel Embiid is going to cause havoc. That has to count for something, Mr. Kumar. Now that Joel Embiid is in shape, they want no business of it. They don't want the smoke because they know he can disrupt an offense like he did against the Jazz. The Jazz are the number one offense in the league and number one team in the league, and Joel Embiid just completely annihilated them. He took them out of everything that they wanted to do, Mr. Kumar, and totally changed their game plan. And he has been having great defensive games, and he will continue to have great defensive games down the stretch. But that game has to count for something.
One game, I'm not going to give an award based on one game. I'm sorry, Mr. Patel, because that's not how the way works, because he has to prove for another 32 games if he's or actually 40 games if he's going to be even considered as a Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be definitely considered as one of the top ranked most valuable players, and that is remain at the top of the table. If they drop down to 2-3, then that ranking also goes down.
Yeah, they will. We'll see, Mr. Kumar, because the Sixers are going to continue to play well. But the Brooklyn Nets are definitely coming. And I'm not going to let you do that, Mr. Kumar. It is not the Eastern Conference. You can make an argument that the East is better than the West this year. Because first of all, they have the Bucks, the Sixers, the Nets, the Heat, Mr. Kumar, the Celtics. So the Eastern Conference is stacked this year, and they have an argument that they could be better than the West. And it looks like the audience agrees with Mr. Kumar when saying
absolutely not. If you gotta, you gotta win 45% of your games in the East if you want to qualify for the playoffs, and that's not the case in terms of the West. You gotta win at least 55% of the games if you want to be in the playoff.
Well,
Unfortunately, Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, the Indiana Pacers, and of course, I mean the Knicks. All of a sudden,
no. The Knicks are not
they're
no.
like in the top 6.
No, exactly. But we'll see, Mr. Kumar. We'll see what's going to happen. The audience agrees that Rudy Gobert should be the Defensive Player of the Year, but we'll see. I think Joel Embiid has an argument, and he will continue to have an argument. But let's move on to Rookie of the Year, Mr. Kumar. So I'll start with that. I think it's LaMelo Ball over Tyrese Halliburton, because LaMelo Ball leads all rookies in points, rebounds, steals, and even in efficiency and assists also, Mr. Kumar. And he's put us on such a spectacular season so far, and he's been a big reason why the Hornets are in playoff contention.
I think if I was a voter, I would vote for LaMelo Ball, but I think it's just an unfortunate thing that Halliburton is playing for a team like the Sacramento Kings, which is probably at the bottom of the table in the West. But statistically speaking, Halliburton has had far more success statistically than LaMelo Ball. I mean, it's just that LaMelo Ball is playing for a team, like the Charlotte Hornets, who, I mean, there was absolutely no expectations from a team like the Hornets. I mean, you didn't, of course, because they signed Gordon Hayward, they had Tony Rozier, Malik Monk, and of course, LaMelo Ball came coming off the bench and, lighting it up with his passes, with his shots. And of course, he's done far more better defensively, considering he was not considered to be a defensive player. But I think it's just unfortunate that Halliburton is playing for the Kings, and he went 12th in this draft class, and of course number 3 for LaMelo Ball. And this draft class was considered really like a lottery, because you didn't know if any of these people are going to be top players in the NBA.
Yeah, it was a lottery, because, a lot of these players were not projected to be, great NBA players, but it's a pretty good draft. And Prashant is saying Anthony Edwards is going to be a beast in the future. I agree, Prashant, but the Rookie of the Year is not based on potential. It's based on this year. And I think LaMelo Ball has had great shooting. He plays a little better defense. He's great facilitating, Mr. Kumar. He's just a great all-around player, and he loves to get his teammates involved. And we asked the audience, who is the Rookie of the Year? And 91% say LaMelo Ball. So it looks like they agree with me and Mr. Kumar. And again, Mr. Kumar, let's move on now, because we're going to soon get to Indian basketball news. We're going to have her answer the question, is Indian ballers studying abroad good or bad? So continue to put your your comments in the chat section below, and we're going to get to that question really soon. Me and Mr. Kumar got a little heated there. I think we're going to continue to get heated. More fireworks going to come on the Patel and Kumar show. But Mr. Kumar, let's talk about Coach of the Year. So who is your Coach of the Year so far?
I would vote Quinn Snyder. It was an easy choice for me with the way the Utah Jazz are playing. Of course, past history shows, they've not been really consistent in the playoffs. They've been a very good, regular season team, but come playoffs, they falter. But so far, I mean, what I've seen from the Utah Jazz, I think Coach Snyder gets my vote easily.
We disagree on this, Mr. Kumar. I'm going to say Doc Rivers from the Philadelphia 76ers. He's completely changed that team around, completely changed the culture around. First of all, they're better in wins. They were 6th last year in the East. I can confidently say they will not finish 6th this year. They're at least going to be 1 or 2, or at least 3 at the worst. They're better offensively with efficiency-wise. They're much more better offensively. He's using Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid the right way. There was questions, Mr. Kumar, whether these two can coexist. Those questions have went away. They're no longer questions anymore. We know that they can coexist. They play well together. They complement each other well. He's really utilized Tobias Harris. People were criticizing the Sixers for that big contract that they gave Tobias Harris, but now he's using them the right way, attacking the basket, getting to the free throw line. Sixers are first in free throws attempted and first in free throws made. Doc Rivers completely changed the culture on defense. They're a defensive first team, and he uses his players the right way, and he utilizes his role players also that complement his stars. So I'm going to say Doc Rivers right now is the coach of the year.
Why? I mean, just because I mean, he made a bad team good. I mean, I think it is the same case with Jazz. I mean, they were fifth. I think they were sixth last year, and they're like the number one team in the West. I've just told you earlier, the West is much better stacked than the East.
Oh God!
And I mean, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, both these coaches have faltered in the playoffs. I mean, Philadelphia 76ers, you can vote on the base of intangibles. I mean, yes, he's made, Joel Embiid better. He's made Ben Simmons better.
MVP candidate.
He's made Tobias Harris better than last season. But, records speak for themselves. I mean, Jazz have lost only 9 games this season, whereas it's been 12 games for Philadelphia 76ers in the East.
But
the East.
But Mr. Kumar, they would not have lost 12 games if Joel Embiid would have not missed as many games. They would have won more games with.
But that's not his problem. That is not his problem. That is the coach's problem. If he's not able to play, the coach is saying he's gonna take time off to be a better player. I mean, that's the coach's problem, and that is not the team's problem. But, you can punish a team like Utah Jazz just because Joel Embiid does not want to risk injury. You don't see that with Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert. They're playing each and every game.
But he has cranky knees. You have to save Joel Embiid. I think he's more in shape, Mr. Kumar. He's played more games than he has in the past. But come on, you could just tell that his players respect Doc Rivers. He's garnered the respect when Brett Brown did it. They listen to his players. He's a championship coach. The adjustments that he makes in game are amazing.
The problem is Coach Snyder is the most underrated coach in the NBA. Doc Rivers has always been considered as one of the top coaches in the NBA, but unfortunately, he has never gotten out of the second round in the playoffs.
But Mr. Kumar, Quinn Snyder has also faltered. And come on, he has Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. It's not like he's doing it with a bunch of nobodies. And nobody was criticizing whether Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert can play together. People were criticizing, well, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can play together. And those questions...
No, but that's the media. That's the media narrative that they couldn't play together.
It's answered now.
Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert had their differences exactly a year back when Rudy Gobert tested positive, for coronavirus. But, that didn't really affect them. At the same time, I'm telling you, records matter. The conference matters.
Okay. But Mr. Kumar, people weren't expecting the Sixers this year to be one of the top teams in the East, in the top tier. People were expecting the Jazz to be a top 4 team in the West. So Doc Rivers has supplanted expectations, and people are talking about now whether the Sixers can beat the Nets, and that's Doc Rivers. That's new culture, new coach coming in, where that's a conversation now, whether the Sixers can beat the Nets. Nobody's asking whether the Jazz can beat the Lakers or the Clippers. That's not even a conversation.
Of course they're asking. Of course they're asking whether the Jazz can beat the Lakers or the Clippers. I mean, they are asking. Come on.
That's not going to happen.
What articles are you reading, man?
Mr. Kumar, if the Jazz play the Lakers, it's going to be a sweep. The Lakers are just better than the Jazz, while the Sixers, they have a real chance to beat the Brooklyn Nets. I think because who on the Brooklyn Nets can stop Joel Embiid, Mr. Kumar?
That's on paper. That's on paper.
Oh.
That's on paper. You're just looking at the team, looking at the roster, and you will have all these intangibles, and you're just contemplating on winning and losing. You got to see the record at the end of the regular season.
Thank you. We have audience comments saying, yeah, Jazz not beating the Lakers. Exactly. Jazz are not beating the Lakers. The Jazz are...
Even Sixers are not beating the Nets.
They haven't argued
not beating the Nets. You yourself have claimed that the Brooklyn Nets are going to come out as champions from the East.
I know, Mr. Kumar, but that series at least is going to go 7 games, the Sixers and the Nets, because nobody on the Nets can stop Joel Embiid. Nobody can stop Ben Simmons. That's going to go 7 games.
Once again, you are going by the media narrative that this is the possibility. The possibility is that the Jazz have beaten Lakers in the regular season. The Jazz have beaten the Clippers in the regular season. Yes, if you look at common sense, in a 7-game series, it's going to be difficult for the Jazz to beat the Clippers or the Lakers in a 7-game series. And the possibility of the Philadelphia 76ers beating the Nets, probably the chances are higher. I agree to that. But you cannot base the vote just on the fact that there is a possibility. And I'm telling you, the possibility is also being considered because there are only 2 teams in the East right now. Nobody's even considering the Bucks to go beyond second round.
But Mr. Kumar, has Doc Rivers, or has your perception of the Sixers changed since Doc Rivers came? Because you knew Brett Brown couldn't bring the Sixers into a deep playoff run, but at least you have confidence that Doc Rivers can. So has your perception of the Sixers changed since Doc Rivers got hired?
Of course it's changed. It's also changed. It's also changed. No, it's also changed because he's got more manpower. Whereas it has been the same team for the Utah Jazz, which has improved significantly this season.
They have, but Mr. Kumar, you see them falter. They're going to go down. I don't think they're going to continue this pace. While the Sixers are going to still be.
But
they're going to be the top team.
At the end of the day, the records speak for themselves. Mid-season, Utah Jazz has definitely been the better team than Philadelphia 76ers.
Well,
yes or no?
Yes, but that's kind of relative because Joel Embiid's missed games.
Yeah, so I mean,
Ben Simmons has missed games due to COVID. Seth Curry has missed games. They've had more COVID issues than the Utah Jazz, Mr. Kumar.
I mean, you can fault all these things, but anyway, I think let's move on to the next.
We can talk about all day. We have all day. Let's lastly say MVP, Mr. Kumar. Who is your MVP? I think we'll agree on this, but there's no guarantee. Who is your MVP?
Well, I mean, till February it was LeBron James, but he's had a very bad month. In February, ranking-wise, Joel Embiid has overtaken LeBron James in the MVP race as of now.
Yep, I 100% agree with you, Mr. Kumar. Joel, I know I sound like a Sixers fan. I still think that the Nets.
I know. I'm sure you were expecting me to say LeBron James.
I was expecting you to say LeBron James, but at least in the last section of this comment, we can finally agree on something, Mr. Kumar. It is going to be Joel Embiid, and we asked the audience who's the MVP. They said LeBron James, but it has to be a Joel Embiid. I know we got to move on. We went a little bit over. Just real quick, a couple points I got to make. Joel Embiid is second in efficiency, second in scoring, and per 36 minutes, he's been averaging 33 points and 12 rebounds. And I think it has to be Joel Embiid as the MVP, Mr. Kumar. But, Mr. Kumar, anything else to add before we move on to the trivia?
No, I think we just forgot probably the most improved player, but I think let's cover that in the future episode. But let's move on to the trivia, and I think we're going to be short on time even to do the Indian Tadka section. So let's have a look at the trivia and then take a call whether we are going to have the Indian Tadka section today or maybe, we can probably continue it in the next episode.
Okay. Yep. So let's move on to the NBA trivia. So first, we're going to start with NBA and audience members. Please put your, your answers in the chat section below. And, you may help me and Mr. Kumar, and we'll definitely, feature them live. But without further ado, Mr. Kumar, let's get started with the trivia, the NBA section. And after the NBA, we're going to be doing an Indian basketball trivia. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. But let's start with the first question in the NBA trivia. All right. Who has won the most NBA scoring titles? Again, audience members, put your answers in the comment section below. But Mr. Kumar, this is a tough one. We got Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird. So what are your thoughts about this question, Mr. Kumar?
I know that Magic John hasn't had too many scoring titles. Michael Jordan has, I think, got 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken.
I think yeah.
Uh, I think I would go with Wilt Chamberlain because I just feel, I mean, when he was just too dominant when he was playing, and there was absolutely no stopping him. Uh, so I don't know. I think Patty Power says Magic Johnson. Okay, come on, you
So
guys,
Hum is
you can
saying
have the
NBA.
answers coming in. Soham Gupta, Shazam says Wilt. What about you, Shivam? What do you think?
It's a tough one. I'm kind of contemplating between Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. I know some audience members are saying Michael Jordan, some are saying Magic Johnson, but I think I have to go with Michael Jordan. So I think, Mr. Kumar, you're saying who are you saying again? Wilt Chamberlain?
Will Chamberlain.
Okay, and I'm going to say Michael Jordan. So let's see what the answer is.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan. Okay. And he has 10 scoring titles, so that is not surprising. He has led the league in scoring multiple years, and looks like a lot of the audience members was able to get the answer right. So congratulations, and yep, we have audience members say Jordan. So yep, that looks like Jordan is the right answer. So let's move on to question number 2, Mr. Kumar. Who is the youngest NBA player to win the NBA regular season MVP award?
I think it's Derrick Rose, if I'm not mistaken. It was that one season where he was phenomenal. I'm pretty sure I'm good with that answer because Kobe Bryant didn't win his MVP award like after till he was 22, 23. I think it's Derrick Rose.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He had that one phenomenal season where we thought that this was the start of a superstar, he was amazing that year, getting to the rim, scoring threes. He was just unstoppable. He would have that spin move, Mr. Kumar, where he would go one-way spin move and dunk, and his athleticism was crazy. And it looks like, yep, Derrick Rose is the answer. And yep, as Soham said, he came into the league in 2008, won it in 2010. So yep, you're exactly right, Soham. And Derrick Rose looks like to be the answer, Mr. Kumar. And he just had an insane athleticism. So we have our next question. Who has won the most Defensive Player of the Year awards?
I don't know. I want to pick Ben Wallace here for some reason.
I'm going to go with, I think Dwight Howard has won multiple awards when he was with the Magic. He had a little string where he had some Defensive Player of the Year awards.
I think he's at 2. I think he's at 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. If
3,
I'm not
okay.
mistaken. But I can't remember Ben. I think Ben Wallace has had. I don't know. I think you might be right. Actually, it could be Dwight Howard. It could be.
Yep. So I'm saying Dikembe Mutombo. Yep. Let's see.
The finger wave.
The finger wave. Dikembe Mutombo.
Oh, Mutombo and Ben Wallace. I was like Ben Wallace. Yeah.
Ooh, so it looks like Soham and others did get it right with Ben Wallace and Dikembe Mutombo, the finger wave. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, Mr. Kumar. I did not know.
I got it right with Ben Wallace.
Yep, exactly, and you got it right too. Exactly. So who has won the most NBA Coach of the Year award?
This is a tough one.
I know what I'm going to say, but go ahead, Mr. Kumar.
I think this is a tough one. I think you're gonna say Greg Popovich, for sure.
Yep, but I don't know because Phil Jackson has an argument here. I think those are the 2 goats of coaching. Exactly, Soham. Those are Pop or Phil Jackson. But I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna go with Greg Popovich, Mr. Kumar. Who's your final?
I think it could be Pat Riley as well because he's coached Lakers, he's coached the Knicks, he's coached the Miami Heat. Multiple teams, and he's won championship with 2 of them. Only one, I think. 2 of them. He was a coach when Dwayne Wade won the championship as well. So I don't know. Even Don Nelson, it's like a googly because he's right up there. You know what? I think I'm going to pick Don Nelson. I'm going to go with Shrishti's choice.
Don Nelson. Okay, let's see if you and Shristi are right. Ooh, it's a three-way tie.
I was right with Pat Riley. I was right with Don Nelson.
Ooh, it's a
and you were
three-way
right with Greg Popovich as well. So this was like this was the answer when everybody gets it right.
But Mr. Kumar, Greg Popovich, I'm hoping you can win one more so he can go ahead of Don Nelson and Pat Riley. But yeah, it looks like everybody did get it right with Don Nelson, Greg Popovich, and Pat Riley. So Mr. Kumar, now let's do some Indian basketball trivia. I know Mr. Kumar is an expert, in Indian basketball. I know the audience knows a lot, especially in India, about Indian basketball. Let's see how much I know about Indian basketball. I may have to call for a lifeline. So ladies and gentlemen, if I'm having trouble, I'm going to rely on you guys in the comments. So continue to put your answers in the comment section below. But are you ready for it?
I know this. Yeah. I mean, I know this one. It's pretty easy. So I don't know if the audience knows, because most of our audience is like pretty young. I don't know if they have, ever seen this player or ever, heard about him before. He goes in the history books of Indian basketball for sure. He's surely in the Hall of Fame of Indian basketball.
All right, I'm going to rely on Mr. Kumar for this one. Mr. Kumar, who do you think? I know what we're going to give the audience a few seconds to get their answers if they do know the answer. But Mr. Kumar, I think it looks like he knows this one. He's pretty sure about this one. So let's see the answer. Or who is this? Who is this Indian basketball legend, Mr. Kumar?
Kushiram, yeah.
Yeah,
Kushiram, yes.
The best basketball player Asia.
So he was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the comments from another Asian coach. So basically, I mean, his son Ram Kumar also was an excellent, shooter, and he also played for the Indian team. So Kushiram was definitely, I mean, also one of the first person to get the Arjuna Award for basketball.
Wow, that's amazing. So Kushiram is the answer, and he's definitely a basketball legend. So now moving on to the second question. I have a better chance of getting this one right, Mr. Kumar, than the last one, I could say. But what's India's only Olympics appearance? India's only Olympics appearance came in which year? So 1980, 1992, 1996, or 2012. So audience members, if you have the answer, please put your answer in the chat section below. It looks like Mr. Kumar looks like he knows the answer. But let's see. Well, let me get a few minutes just to think about this. But what are your thoughts about this question?
What? 2012? How can
it's definitely not? You can tell by the picture it's not 2012.
Exactly. I mean, Patty, you need to come up with a better answer.
Ekalavyas is saying audience is stumped. Yeah, I think he was talking about the last question. Audience was pretty stumped, with the Indian basketball legend. I'm going to go with this is just a wild guess.
I know the answer. I know.
I'm just going to go for a wild guess, Mr. Kumar. 1996. That was the year I was born, but I'm just going to go with that. I'm just going to kind of guess 1996.
No.
Okay.
It's not 1996. It's yeah. I mean, come on. 1996. It was 1996. Yeah, Shrishti, you're right. It is 1980. 1980 is the answer. And it was also, I mean, India qualified for the Olympics only because the US and the other nations boycotted the Olympics because of the Cold War. And of course, there was a spot open for some of the Asian teams. And of course, India got a chance to play in the Olympics, the one and only time. Yeah. In
so
1980. Moscow. It was the Moscow Olympics.
Yep, Moscow Olympics. And it looks like Shrishti and Jitesh got it right with 1980, and as well as you, Mr. Kumar. So, yep, the Moscow Olympics, 1980. Wow. And
well, I mean, I think we'll have to push our Indian Tadka section to probably the next show because we are well over time. Because it's going to be a long conversation. We can't just cut it short. I mean, because
Yeah, we have to give it a due. Yep.
Yeah, we have to give full justice to that topic. So, I mean, we just have to thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's show. I think we had a fantastic heated argument there because that's what, totally killed the time. I didn't realize, how just time passed by. But subscribe to our YouTube channels, the Ekalavyas YouTube channel, Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel, and follow us on our social media handles at Patel and Kumar on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you one and all for joining for tonight's show. But do we close it just with one of the memes? I think we had a meme. With the first Indian origin referee in the NBA.
Yep, Suresh Mehta. And we have a little
Suyash Mehta.
Suyash Mehta. And he teed up Kyrie Irving. So we're going to show a little meme, a video for that.
Works on Irving, lost the ball.
He had Kyrie too.
Irving on Sexton. We have an offensive foul called on Irving. Oh my, what a big call made by official Suyash Mehta. The indication made is that Irving with his offhand hit Sexton up near the face. Irving got called on a similar play in the first quarter. He pleads his case, as does James Harden. A big, big call. Let's take a look. Did Irving get him up high?
Sure did.
Yep. And it looks like you have Suyash Mehta teed up Kyrie Irving. And yeah, he's a first-time referee, the first Indian origin referee in the NBA. He's doing great things. I've watched multiple games with him as the official. He's a pretty good official, Mr. Kumar. So congratulations to Suyash Mehta for continuing to do good work with the NBA and officiating the games.
Thank you, Patty Power, for showing all the love.
Thank you.
Too, I guess.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Patty Power, Shristi, everybody for tuning in so much. I'm sorry we didn't get to the Indian Third segment. We're going to talk about it in the next episode. Like Mr. Kumar said, we want to give it its justice, give it its full due, because I definitely have a lot of points. I know Mr. Kumar has a lot of points to discuss about this. And Ekalavyas is saying, lesson, never mess with Indian refs. Exactly right, Ekalavyas. You do not want to mess with Indian refs, and that's a warning to all the NBA players. But we will be back, Mr. Kumar, after the trade deadline to do a special trade.
You can. Yeah, I mean, you can mess with Indian refs in India. You cannot just mess with Indian referees in the NBA. I think that's what it is.
Exactly right. And we will be back after the trade deadline, which is March 25th at midnight here in the U.S. We're going to have a special breakdown of all the different trades that went down. We may have a special guest with us that's going to be helping us break down. So stay tuned for that. We will keep you guys updated. And remember, you can watch all episodes live on the Ekalavyas YouTube channel, Patel Pick and Roll Sports YouTube channel, or on demand. And be sure to follow us on all our social media channels on Twitter and Instagram. So thank you everybody so much for watching, and thank you, Mr. Kumar. Enjoyed our little debate, and thank you very much, everybody.